Headed to a Game 5 tonight in Washington, D.C. Hurricanes with a chance to close out the Washington Capitals. Boots on the ground in our nation's capital. ESPN.com senior NHL writer Greg Wyshynski at Wyshynski on Twitter. You're there. I wish I was also there. I think this is going to be a blast tonight. What has been the difference through 4 games, you think?
Smothering Carolina defense, puck possession, Freddie Anderson, take your pick. It's the moment for me that really kind of encapsulates the series was probably last game when the Capitals had that 4-minute power play and can't even enter the zone. When you're able to do that against this Capitals team, then it's pretty obvious that you've got this thing well in hand. And look, I think there's a very good chance we could actually push this thing to 6.
Yep.
But then, obviously probably ends there with the way the Carolinas played on home ice. But, just the ability for this team to roll 4 lines, 3 deep pairings, know what you're getting out of all of them, and play the kind of defensive game that they've been known to play in the playoffs against the Capitals team that, has some pop to it, but not necessarily a high level of offensive depth, I think has been the story in the series. It's
funny. Spencer Carberry mentioned that if we don't have a lead, we don't have a type of team that can just come back and score goals. And I'm not saying he's wrong, but weren't they second in the NHL in goals?
They were, and I don't think he's. I think he's right to a point.
Right.
and the point is that I think this team has enough offense to come back against a lot of teams. But when you're playing Carolina and they smother the life out of you defensively, you can just kind of feel the air come out of a team like the Capitals when they don't get the lead. And in those games in Carolina, they don't get the lead, and you can just kind of feel. You you almost look at these guys and it looks like they're staring up at Everest, right? It is a tough thing to begin with to try to score a goal against this Carolina team. It's even tougher when they can get to their structure and know that they've got a little bit of cushion on the scoreboard. So I know what he's saying, and I think he wouldn't necessarily be saying it if they were playing the Leafs. But it certainly feels like a first goal win kind of series against Carolina.
Greg Wyshynski is joining us from ESPN here on the Adam Gold Show. Here's the thing about it, and these things are kind of self-fulfilling because Carolina leads 3-1. They've got twice as many as 12-6 in terms of goals to Washington. But Carolina's got 16 different players with a scoring point in this. 16. I think Washington's got 8. Carolina's got a dozen players with at least 2 points in the series. And the big guys haven't really popped. I mean, Andre's got 2 goals. One of them is an empty net goal. But Sebastian Aho doesn't have a goal in the series. Yeah. Carolina is doing it all across the lineup.
It's their blessing and their curse, right? I mean, we were talking to Aho about this because, at the end of the day, they remain that team that traded for Gensel and traded for Rantanen for a reason.
Yep.
Which is that they can roll 4 and get good offense out of 4. And then when it comes to a extremely tightly played conference final series against someone like Florida, you need a star to step up. You need a scorer to step up. You need someone to make a play. And the problem is that when you are, depending on your offense to come from your depth, sometimes that depth doesn't always deliver. And you need your star to deliver. Right. And they know that, and that's why they made those deals. So, Aho said the right things, which is that, we're confident in our offense. We get scoring throughout the lineup and everything else. But, that's kind of your fear about this team right now, is that even with the way that they're playing, they're still that same team that, looking ahead to next round, is going to need a hero, is going to need someone to score an overtime goal or something like that. And that's what they've not gotten in any season under Rod to then advance to play for the Cup.
Yeah, it's funny. You go back a couple of years, Carolina and Florida in the conference finals. And in Game 1 in Raleigh, which went well beyond any day's sell-by date, Seth Jarvis had an opportunity. Now, he's a second-year player, so nobody's blaming Seth Jarvis. But he had an opportunity in the slot on I think it was a power play, and an empty net, basically, because Bobrovsky was down and out, and he put it off the crossbar. I don't know if it changes, if the series changes at all. Florida was that good, so I'm not even saying that if they win Game 1, the series is different. But obviously we had 4 very close games. Florida won all 4 of them for a reason, in my opinion. But that game, they had that on their stick. They didn't have Andrei Svechnikov in that series, though.
Right. So, I mean, your point's taken, which is that, listen, they've imported some interesting offensive players. Like Taylor Hall is a guy that's done this for a long time, and he's contributed this playoff. And obviously Logan Stankoven plays the kind of game where if you need a dirty, high-danger chance goal in a tight game, he could probably deliver it to you. But ultimately what you just said is essentially where they're at, which is that they're looking for solutions internally. They're looking for Jarvis to have progressed to the point where he's not going to put it off the post and he's going to put it in the net. They're looking for Svechnikov to have progressed to the point where he could be the solution for that guy to score a big goal in the conference final. So it's not like they haven't tried, man. Like they made the Gensel deal with the hope that he was going to be the difference and he was fine in the playoffs, but didn't want to resign. And they made the Rantanen deal and then decided to cut bait with him. I do think I wrote about Rantanen today on ESPN and like, I am interested to see ultimately, like, when this whole thing is said and done for Carolina, if they fall short of the cup, if there's probably an argument to be made for keeping him. If there's an argument to be made, I mean, that some of that is 2020 hindsight with the way that he's played for Dallas. But you bought him in to be the difference maker in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. You only get so many whacks at this piñata. There probably was an argument to try and maximize your window with this guy in your lineup. But then again, who knows if he's even doing this with Carolina because he's talked about the fact that he didn't think stylistically there was a fit for him with the way the Hurricanes play. So who knows? Yeah,
I think there were a lot of things there. I think it had nothing to do with the hockey. I think he just didn't want to be here, and he had checked out. The coming back from 4 Nations, it wasn't good. If you go back and you looked at the 7 or 8 games he played, yeah. It wasn't the Mikko Rantanen we're watching. It wasn't.
I think his downplaying of the familial or cultural reasons to not want to sign long term in Raleigh. I think his downplaying of that is a little disingenuous from what I understand.
Yeah.
But I understand why he's saying it. But I do think there's something to be said for whether or not he thinks what he does fits with what Rod does. What Rod does is very specific.
Yeah.
And it's a style of play that players have to get used to. And it's entirely possible that he is being truthful in the notion of, I think that I could thrive and get my numbers in a different system with different personnel than they have in Carolina. And I mean, you look at what he's doing now with Hintz and Granlund.
Yep. He's awesome.
And there's something to that. So I don't disagree with you that I think that there's more things than hockey that played into this decision, but I do think that he's been honest about the idea that maybe stylistically it didn't really fit with what he does and what how the Hurricanes play.
Yeah, I think in his first handful of games with Carolina, he was probably more bad luck that they didn't compile a whole bunch of points. I don't know how many posts he hit. About as many as Andrei Svechnikov has hit so far in the playoffs. Greg Wyshynski is joining us here on the Adam Gold Show. But I understand the point, and Carolina has been looking. There's a reason they traded for Rantanen and gave up Martin Necas and Jack Drury to get there. There's a reason they traded for Gensel, and that's another interesting story as to why Jake is in Tampa and not Raleigh right now. But Carolina does need that guy, and Andrei Svechnikov looks like he's going to be at least a Mikko light based on what I have seen so far in the playoffs. I mean, he's never going to be what Mikko is. There's only about 5 or 6 of those dudes on Earth.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Nobody's asking Andre to be that guy. Let me ask you real quick about the and by the way, I would love the drama of Carolina Dallas in a.
Wouldn't it be great?
Oh my gosh, it would be great. But real quick to Toronto and Florida. I've always thought Florida's the best team. I thought the end of the regular season kind of damaged that a little bit, but maybe it was just Matthew Tkachuk was out and they were all just bored of regular season hockey, which is possible. I mean, I think you get bored. I mean, no teams in the East played well down the stretch. 0. I mean, only Montreal and Ottawa, I think, played well down the stretch. This is how they made the playoffs. Everybody was laboring. Did Toronto just completely turtle last night, and is that permanent?
Yeah, and it is. I mean, like, I came into this series, and they played well. I mean, they got off the hop on a pretty strong note playing at home, and we were all thinking this could be the year. And again, the biggest opponent, the most devastating opponent the Leafs play every year is themselves.
Yeah.
And as long as you can keep those demons at bay, and as long as you can keep those doubts from overcoming you, then you're in business. And the problem was that they simply couldn't do that for more than a couple games. Last night was indicative of it just collapsing. And so, yeah, first of all, I'm so bored of this. Aren't you bored? Like, I know there's certain people that love the Schadenfreude of the Leafs losing every year, but like, it just would have been more exciting for them to just have a good series and fall short than to have this be the conversation we have to have for the 100th time about them. But last night was indicative of what happens when the pressure gets too intense and the opponent they're playing knows how to punch them in the face and hit them in the head and walk away without any repercussion. And that culture that is, pervaded for this team for so long just kind of like creeps into their heads and things just fall apart real quickly. So, is this going to be a massive sea change off season for them? I mean, in theory, it probably is. I mean, Marner's a free agent, and Brendan Shanahan, who's the president of the team, might not have his contract renewed. He might end up being the president of the Islanders next year. But like, you feel like this could be the tipping point. But at the same time, again, this is where things get really dicey for the Leafs, which is every year this happens, you're like, okay, you got to break up the core. And then you're like, okay, so where do we replace 70 goals from Austin Matthews if you wanted to cut bait with Austin Matthews? Like, it's a real conundrum when your best players, I mean, look at Florida. I mean, their best players are their best playoff players, and Toronto doesn't have that. And so you either have to augment that and color around the edges with guys that do play well in the playoffs, or you have to change the makeup of your core. And we're at that tipping point now for them.
And then last night, the goals came from who? Like, how is that a record for first goal of the playoffs in Florida's 10th game, 11th game? How many guys scored their first goal of the playoffs last night? It was remarkable.
And that's a good point, because I mean, like, you look over at that Edmonton series against Vegas, who scores the game-winning goal in overtime? It's not McDavid.
No,
it's not Draisaitl. It's Kasperi Kapanen. Like these teams that are winning and thriving, and Carolina is certainly one of them, are getting contributions from everyone. So when the big guns don't fire, there's still someone there to pick up the slack. And for all the criticism of Marner and Matthews in this series, I mean, where's Tavares?
Yeah.
Like, where's anybody down the lineup? I mean, Nyes has played well, but other than that, you don't have a lot of other contribution. And so, it's a total systems failure in Toronto, and I'm not entirely sure what they have to do next.
Greg Wyshynski, ESPN senior NHL writer, at Wyshynski on Twitter. Sir, I hope to see you for the conference finals. I hope Carolina gets there. Love to see him close it out tonight so I can take Saturday off. I could use it. I don't know where you're headed, but I hope to see you here.
I am doing something I've never done before in my decades of covering the playoffs. I am going off the beat to attend a wedding this weekend.
Wow.
My wife's in the bridal party, so by law I have to attend the wedding. It's and the person who's getting married, by the way, is a very prominent college football writer, which is why I think she decided that doing this in late May was okay for her.
Right.
Not okay for the hockey writers, but okay for her. But so I'll be off the beat for some game 6s and 7s this weekend, which is an awkward thing for sure.
It's all right. A weekend off is a weekend off. I appreciate your time, sir. I'll see you soon.